That not my name.
Goodbye, everybody. It's Bizarro, and I am here with another episode of Bizarro Style, where we are going to be looking at team synergy again with shields. Before we get started with that, just one quick announcement. I want to thank my new Patreon, Chosen One, who is a member of Bizarro's #1 Alliance, who came in at the Mayor of Bizarro World level. I appreciate your donation, and it will go to a good cause and help me to review future characters. Please be patient as I continue to try to figure out what I want the Patreon rewards to be for each level. And if you want to become a Patreon, please visit patreon.com/bizarrostyle. So as I said, we're going to be covering the Synergy series today. Just to remind you, Synergy is the idea that you want to be able to find characters that work very well together. And so with this particular Synergy series, we're going to be covering shield teams, as I mentioned, and my special guest to cover that with me is Kal-El.
Greetings, everyone.
Now, there's a rumor out there, Kal-El, that you don't actually exist, that you're just an alt account for me. So, you want to dispel that rumor?
So yeah, I exist. My team, my alliance is pretty convinced of that fact.
Yeah, you are. Just to remind the listeners, you are the head of the Knights of Rao, and you've given me the privilege of being on the server. And I really appreciate that. You have a really good alliance, nice folks in there, and I like interacting with them.
Oh yeah, they're a great bunch of people. They're my family, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about shield characters. Shields are really a nice thing in the game when you use shield characters because it's basically like getting extra health that you didn't have before. And so I thought it was a good one that we should include. This, I think, will be the third in the Synergy series. So
yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so I mean, nothing wrong with some extra shields, like Star Trek style shields up.
Right.
So the way we always proceed with this is by listing the different characters by affinity. And we'll just go in order from energy to mystic to physical. And I'll give you the honor of doing the energy characters first, if you're okay with that.
Sure. Okay, well, first up, we got Arcus Chummock, or Elvin, as people have been calling him. He gets 10% shield if target is killed. He also has the ability. Sword and Shield that gives him how much of a shield again?
I think it's 25%.
It's pretty good. It's a decent amount, but it's only centered on himself. Then we have Brainiac, which is an exceptional character. It's in general. He gains 30% shield double if no shield is I'm not sure what that abbreviation is.
With his legendary upgrade.
Right. Then we have Superman, Cyborg Superman is a shield monster. Gains 5% shield per 5% per buff on the enemy, 30% max. And we got Dark Knight, gains 40% shield, and he also gains, I think, 17% shield on his basic when he pounds somebody. Then we have Firestorm, 50% chance to give 15% shield to all allies. And we got Hal Jordan. He's I can't remember what percentage it is. It was at 35% for his leadership.
Yeah, I think so.
And then on his basic, he applies 24% shield to a random teammate, which is exceptionally handy. Then we have Jessica Cruz, getting 30% shield. Jessica is not debuffed. I think she also has another one. Can't remember what hers is. I don't use her like at all.
30% shield to all allies plus 15% shield per dead ally. That's the In Brightest Day move.
Yeah, then that would be why I don't really particularly care for her. She really good when everybody's dead,
Yeah.
which I never plan on. Then we have Medfill, play 10% shield on mended. Stargirl, give 50% shield to an ally. And Terra, 30% chance to also apply 20% shield, which I don't even know why they even bothered.
Yeah, that, and we'll talk about that. At least, I know I have that listed somewhere, so we'll definitely talk about that.
Definitely, yes.
All
And
right,
that's
so
what we that rounds off our energy guys.
yeah, and it's no surprise that energy makes up the most shielders by my count. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 energy shielders, which is no surprise. That makes up the bulk because by my count, there's 22 shielders total. So let me hit the mystic ones. So starting off with Alan Scott, who can give 35% shield to self and 20% shield to each teammate through protection of Starheart. He can gain 100% shield if the target dies with the legendary upgrade on Weight of My Will. And then he can also have a 40% chance to apply 10% shield at the beginning of each enemy's turn under Starheart's Blessing. Then there's Blue Beetle, where the first time Blue Beetle falls below 30% health, he can gain 61% shield from his Carapace passive. Dr. Fate can apply 40% shield to his team through Naboo's protection. St. Walker can apply 20% shield to all allies through Hope Burns Bright. And then it also with St. Walker, at the beginning of each turn, allies can gain 10% shield through Beacon of Hope. And then finally with Sinestro, I guess I can't think straight today. Sinestro White Lantern, each ally gains 12% shield when debuffed through his passive Invigoration. There's one more. Wonder Woman, Defender of Justice, who you really wouldn't think of is a shielder naturally, but actually can shield herself. She can gain 10% shield with the legendary upgrade from Fearless Leader. So basically, she can give herself 10% shield on her basic.
Yeah, it can be handy.
So then we have the physical characters. You want to... Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I remember when she first came out, she was pretty really really good, and she's still good. It's just that all the other characters are overshadowing her.
Yeah, she's a little squishy now, so having her taunt all the time is kind of a curse more than a blessing.
Oh yes.
Do you want to hit the physical characters that can shield?
Yep. Well, we got Atrocitus. At the start of the battle, apply 15% shield to all allies. It's only usable once. And we got Booster Gold. I think he's probably my favorite physical shielder. Apply 60% shield to an ally. I think that's the highest out of anybody, with the exception of Alan Scott, who gives 100% if the target is killed. That's as high as you can get. That's what is that? Is that his third? That's his booster. Right, that's right. Then we have Connor Kent, 50% chance to gain 20% shield, which is not a bad chance. Then Lex Luthor, Assault Warsuit, gain 40% shield. I think that one is his third. It's something like that. A very underrated character. Then Penguin, play 20% shield to self and 15% shield to allies. He's always a good character.
Yeah, I think that one's underrated too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. Everybody, knows that is a pain in the rear, but not everybody really knows that doesn't use him. That he is very helpful to his team as far as keeping everybody alive. In case shields.
Yeah, very much so. And Penguin's one of those that every time I see him, if you're going in on the PvP to fight somebody and you see Penguin, you think, oh my God, this is going to take forever.
Oh, thank God for Lex Luthor's survival suit, though. He shuts him down immediately.
That's a good point, with the buff immunity. So that covers all the shielders in the game, and as I said, that there are 22 total by my count. And if I missed one or we missed one, please let us know, because those were all the ones that we saw. And so the category that, or I should say, the affinity that has the fewest is the physical, which only has 5 shielders. But you would kind of expect that, right? Because you wouldn't expect physical characters to necessarily be shielders.
No, I remember for a good while before I actually started getting super into the strategies of everything when I returned to the game. I wasn't even aware that some like even had shields. Like I think when I returned in last April, I wasn't even aware of how useful Penguin was. Or did he? Yeah. I had no idea how much of a pain in the neck he was going to be, or that he keeps shields. And then when I think it was Booster Gold came out, I knew he was really good, but until I started fighting him, I didn't know that he actually gave out shields and so much in one whack.
The Penguin, I can't remember when Penguin got his rework, but the Penguin rework was one of the really good reworks that they have done, taking a character and really making them, much better than they were prior to the rework. So I don't know if that was during the time maybe you were gone, but he went from sort of a nothing burger to nothing to be trifled with. So nice change there.
A complete change.
So the next thing we were going to talk about is who we think the best shielders are by each affinity. And I want to put a sort of, not really a caveat on this, but more of a way of thinking about this, because when you and I were talking prior to recording, we were saying that you can really categorize shielders in 2 ways, which is your selfish shielders and your team shielders, meaning that the character will give out shields to the entire team rather than only shielding themselves. And then there's kind of a middle grade category of that where somebody can only shield one person, but they are allowed to shield somebody besides themselves, so it's not as selfish. So when I was putting my list together of who I thought the best shielders were, I sort of had one for each of those categories, whereas one is they're sort of a little bit selfish, but just a really good character overall. And then one for a character that's a little less selfish towards a team giving out shields. So, and I think you agreed with that, right? That this was kind of a natural way to categorize them.
Oh, without a doubt, it's really handy to know, going to build your team. If it's going to be useful for just one person, or if it's going to be useful for the whole team. Absolutely.
So do you think, should we take a second maybe to list them that way, that we can really talk about whether they shield the team or not?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can start it off with listing all the selfish ones that we know of.
Okay.
All right. Well, the first one we got, I believe, is Arcus.
That's right.
Yeah, he pretty much only takes care of himself.
Selfish bastard. I'm just kidding.
Brainiac is be another one. He only is able to shield himself. Cyborg Superman, also.
And one thing about Cyborg Superman too is when I did the team leaders video, he was one that I mentioned that I really don't like his team leader ability, because even his team leader ability, which is normally something that is that helps the whole team, it only helps him with shield. So
Yeah, yeah, he's a villain. It makes
I
sense.
guess that's true. But you have other villains like Ultraman that actually have a bonus for helping other villains. So I guess he's
That
just really a selfish bastard.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense for that character.
Yeah, I guess
Uh,
Hank doesn't like anyone.
no, no, Hank doesn't even like Hank. See, I think another one would be Dark Knight. He only does himself, and yeah, Blue Beetle definitely only himself. Uh, Wonder Woman, Defender of Justice, with her basic, only does only takes care of her.
You said she
Uh,
does herself.
yeah, that just seems completely against character.
Yeah,
And
especially when you consider that she is like some of the way some of her name, some of the way some of her moves are named, because she's supposed to be this defender of her teammates, but then seems that the shield's a little selfish on that one.
yeah, and it's even called Fearless Leader. It's hilarious.
I guess she does
Um,
copy the buffs though on her basic, so in a way she is
yeah,
still helping her teammates, just no shield.
yeah, I remember when I would use her for um, red alerts. Uh, I would pair her. This is before Lex got his rework. I would pair her with Star Sapphire, so she would throw buffs to everybody, and then Sapphire would just hand out men's to everybody, just because they got all everybody got buffed. It was really handy.
That's a good idea. And then we did something similar with one of the raids. I think it was one of the first raids where you basically had the core Justice League as the bonus characters. And
Oh
the
yeah,
ability to copy all the strength ups really helped to get more damage onto the raid boss quickly.
yeah, yeah. I remember that. That was my first. I think it was everybody's first raid.
Yeah, that was the very first raid. And so if you ran Atrocitus lead where you already had strength ups from his leader ability, then you could then copy those right away with Wonder Woman Defender of Justice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a fun raid.
It was a fun raid. Um, okay, so now that we sort of have them categorized, because anyone that Cal didn't just list as a selfish shielder is obviously a team shielder. So why don't we can now talk about who we think the best shielders are by affinity, because I was basically saying that, yeah, some of them are a little bit selfish, but I would include them as best shielder because the character is just so strong. So why don't we start with the energy affinity, and you want to talk about who you thought were the strongest energy shielders?
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. I would strongest energy. I would say Hal Jordan, without a doubt. As far as team giving his shield to his team and himself, for that matter.
Yeah, I
But
agree with that one. I mean, when I was making our little spreadsheet to give us a cheat sheet for the show, he's got 4 different abilities that give out shield, which is just unheard of.
yeah, yeah. When they reworked him, they just did such a perfect job. Um, I think very close second um, would be Cyborg Superman, because he gains shield so often. And he's a tough character to kill even when he doesn't have shield. So just having that extra shield is just makes him extra dangerous.
Yeah, he's another one of those that when I see him in a PvP match, I say to myself, well, this is going to take a while.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even with Arcus pounding on him, or even Alan Scott, he still takes a long time to go down.
The other thing I've started using him for is against evasion teams, because his basic can't miss, and then it also says that his next attack can't miss. So that one is really good if you're going up against an evasion team. And I've started using him more for that purpose, just because he's very hard to kill, and so usually you're going up against Batgirl, Harley Quinn, Mad Jester, and probably Wonder Girl, and I think he has really good survivability because of the shields and because of the can't miss ability.
Yeah, absolutely. I could have used him quite a bit lately. I've been running into a lot of Batgirl teams.
Now, I will say, although my choice was also Hal Jordan as sort of the unselfish character that I would choose for Shields, my choice for the more selfish one was Arcus Chummock. And I think his recent rework has just made him really, really powerful. And I think he pairs very well with Black Mask because I can get the taunt on Arcus early and then just have Arcus start hitting people back when they hit him. I like him as a sort of the selfish shielder choice.
Yeah, I would agree with that, without a doubt. Arcus has been pivotal in a lot of my wins lately.
Why don't we move on to physical shield characters and who we think the best are there? I have a feeling you and I are going to agree on this one. I don't know why, but I'll let you start it first.
I would think that Booster Gold would be the best one, both as a selfish shielder and a team shielder. Although he can only do it to one person. To throw down 60% shield immediately is just really great. I mean, he's a great character all around, but adding that to the mix, can really make a difference in a fight.
It does because when I was thinking about that, I had a fight the other day where he was almost down to no energy, and of course I shielded him, and I think this was in a siege match, and so I shielded him, and knock on wood, it was that shield that allowed him to survive the match, and so it's really handy, and the fact that he can give it out to a teammate too is really nice as well. But man, that saved my butt the other day.
Yeah, it really to be able to choose really opens the doors. What you can do. It without a doubt makes a difference between a 2-star victory versus a 3-star victory. This is support another character that is more likely going to die.
Exactly. So who is your other choice?
I think my next choice is kind of a tie, to be quite honest. Maybe a tie between Lex Luthor, Assault Warsuit, and Penguin. Penguin, he can. His ability to shield is just. I mean, not a lot of people know about that ability. I mean, they know he can taunt. They know he has awareness. He can dish out awareness. You know that his affinity ups or downs or whatever you want to call them make him extremely hard to kill. But to be able to hand out shields to everybody, including himself, at the same time, really makes him really important.
Yeah, and the other thing is that the reason he pairs so well with shielders is I believe his taunt, the percentage chance of his taunt occurring goes up dramatically if he is shielded, and so he naturally pairs very well with shielders because of that.
Right. The next one, Lex Luthor, Assault Warsuit, that 40% shield. Now, this isn't the entire reason why he's so underrated, but just to the fact that he, I think on the same move that he gains 40% shield, he also gains a whole bunch of stamina ups.
I know he gains damage immunity. I can't remember about the stamina ups or not. That sounds right to me.
Yeah, I think it's the same move, but
yes.
But anyway, you don't see him near as much as I think you should. He's very, very strong, very strong red. I remember in my first alliance, I had this one friend. I'm remiss on his name. Well, actually, I do know his name, but I'm not going to bother him with it. He would use Assault Warsuit all the time, and at the time, I didn't like him. I didn't like Assault Warsuit, and I would rib him on him all the time until I just saw him. He was always really high in standing in PvP, and yet he would always use Lex, and that was why. So I mean, it's kind of a shame that nobody uses him. But whenever I do see him on there, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be. It's kind of like with Cyborg, Superman, and Penguin. This is going to be a hell of a fight because he can be a pain if you don't take him out early.
That's right. And I mentioned using Cyborg Superman against Can't Miss teams lately. I've actually started using Assault Warsuit Lex against Can't Miss teams too, because his missile attack can't miss either, and it purges a bunch of buffs. So that's really nice against Harley Quinn. And I'll talk about why I think he's a good pairing with Hal Jordan when we get to some of the Shield composition teams that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
But
good.
I agree with your picks. I chose Booster Gold as my semi-selfish shielder and Penguin as my team shielder. I just think they're really good characters. The one downside with Penguin, of course, is he doesn't do a lot of damage. So although you're gaining a lot of defense, you're losing some offense. But nevertheless, pairs very, very well with shield teams, as I mentioned before. Let's move on to the mystical characters and who our choices were for mystic shielders. And if you don't mind, I'll start on this one.
Okay.
So what's really nice about Alan Scott, in my opinion, is he's not only a unselfish shielder in that he can shield his team and he can shield his team passively, but he is just a great character overall. He hits like a truck. He can hit back. He is just a very well constructed character. And obviously he's the 5X tune for this coming raid. I think he'll be the MVP this raid. So he was my selection, my first selection. My second selection was Saint Walker. The ability to give passive shields out again was something I find really, really strong from Saint Walker. And then I think he's just a really good character overall because in a way he's giving you this second form of shielding that, is not really shielding, but that 20% boost that he gives to his team under his team leader ability, where you're essentially getting 20% more health, in a way is kind of like getting more shield. So I really like Saint Walker as a character. I think he's strong. I'm probably not using him as often as I should. And then he can also give out shields. So you can give out shields passively. You can also give out shields with Hope Burns Bright. 20% shield to all allies. So I like him as my other selection for mystical.
I would absolutely agree with that one. Alan Scott is a absolutely solid character. One I've slept on entirely too long. I'm rectifying that now. And your other choice, Saint Walker, on a whim, without actually knowing if he was any good or not, I actually started, was the last raid, I actually started upgrading him right away. I think it was just because he looked really good, in appearance, and I've always liked the character in the comics. So I think that, and I was scheduled to upgrade a blue anyway.
Yeah.
And there he was. So yeah, I'm very, very pleased with Saint Walker, and I think using him in conjunction with Alan Scott in this next raid is going to be very, very, very good. The call assist, and if you score Alan Scott for that call assist, it's just going to be enormous because his strength is going to be boosted.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah, because Alan Scott gets even more damage boosts when he's shielded. I think he has like a 50% chance, increased chance for a critical, and there are other bonuses when he's shielded. So he's another one that's really nice to pair with shielders just because of those bonuses that he gets.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I absolutely your top picks.
So those are what we thought were the best shielders, which naturally leads us to talking about who are the worst shielders. And we'll just go by affinity again. I only listed one per affinity here. If you have more, that's fine. But let's start with energy and who we think the worst shielder is for energy affinity.
Oh, let's see. Energy. I think Terra is probably the worst one because, I mean, it says it right. Just looking at her ability, 30% chance to also apply 20% shield. That's awful.
Yeah,
now,
it's really bad.
When it's AI, it's guaranteed, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but when it's you, 30%. It's never ever really 30%. It's like half that if you're lucky.
I agree.
I think we were talking about this. The like it's just a completely wasted ability. They should have filled that in with something else.
Yeah, or if they rework her, they need to raise that chance because first of all, it's only 20% shield, and you only have a 30% chance for that.
Yeah, yeah. It may mean the difference between winning or losing, but if it's up to your RNG, you're gonna lose. Yeah. So I don't know. Terra is I don't know. I've always had mixed feelings about Terra. She can be really really good, but if you're hinging your decision to use her on the fact that she's going to get this shield, then you might as well just forget it.
Yeah. It reminds me of that line from the Naked Gun movie where he says, he only has a 50-50 chance of living, and there's only a 10% chance of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like this percentage is so small, Well, I had the same one as you. I think Terra, she's not necessarily a bad character, but I certainly wouldn't be bringing her to a match for shields.
No.
How about Mystic? Who did you choose as the worst Mystic character? Or Mystic shielder?
I think my choice for that one would be Wonder Woman DOJ. Because she only does it for herself. And it's only 10%. And since she's taunting, guarantee that 10% is going to be gone the next round. There's been times I've used her, and I have used her a lot as a leader. It's not that 10% shield that's actually made the difference in her living or dying. It's the fact that next time that she taunts, she gains health. So, yeah, and as long as she's dead, that 10% shield has virtually not been anything unless you're able to do it several times in a row to get it built up.
Yeah, so, I can see your logic there.
Yeah, I think I think she would be probably my least favorite.
Well, I chose Blue Beetle, and the reason I chose Blue Beetle was that it's a combination of the fact that his shielding is very heavily gated and only occurs under certain circumstances, which I'll get to in a second. But then, just he's such a bad character overall. At least Wonder Woman Defender of Justice has some redeeming characteristics. But Blue Beetle, I really wanted to like this guy as an anti-shield character, but he's just so bad.
Yeah. I agree. I was really hoping that he would be a rework sooner than later.
So the way, just to remind the audience, the way that Blue Beetle's ability reads is: first time Blue Beetle falls below 30% health, gain 61% shield. So there's two problems I see with this. Is number one is Blue Beetle is very squishy, and I'd be hard pressed to believe there'd be a lot of scenarios where you'd be under 30% health and not dead. But now, let's say that you are, and this is the second part of this, if you are, now with the addition of Huntress killing people who are below 25% health or below, it just doesn't seem like there's much chance that this ability is going to be useful. And when you combine that with the fact that he's just kind of a crappy character, he was my pick. But I think you
Yeah.
made a very good case for Defender of Justice too, with only the 10% shield.
Yeah, Blue Beetle was a very close second. Exact reason.
So how about physical? Who did you choose as the worst shielder for physical?
Uh, I actually chose Atrocitus for that because if you're building a shield team, you only get that 15% shield. Now, granted, 15% is not bad, and it does go to everybody, but it only happens once.
Right.
So he's not good for, uh, in my opinion, to use as a shield character.
Yeah.
Allowing him to contribute in that instance, it's yeah, you probably should choose somebody else.
Yeah, I had a really hard time between choosing between him and Connor Kent. And I ultimately went with Connor Kent because it's 50% chance to gain 20% shield, and I believe it only applies to himself. And I never see Connor Kent anywhere in PvP. I never see him anywhere in raids, nothing.
Yeah, I know.
So I
Yeah, I
ultimately
would.
went with him because I just thought he was a weaker character comparatively with Atrocitus, but it's really close because, like you said, that Atrocitus ability only happens once, and so it was really hard to weigh that out.
Yeah, yeah. It's too bad about Connor because I have an affinity for anyone in the Superman family, and he's a big character in the mythos.
Well, you
And
know what?
so
I
I
have
try.
an affinity against everyone in this Superman family.
It's amazing we're friends.
No, I'm kidding, but I mean, I just have to hold up the Bizarro persona, right? But I don't guess he necessarily hates anyone in the Superman family. He's just often misguided.
Oh yeah, he's in a perpetual state of confusion.
Which is like sort of how I am.
Yeah.
So one thing we wanted to talk about as a bonus that you and I had both thought of was it makes sense if you're going to talk about people who can shield that you should also talk about characters that ignore shield. And the list is not very long, but there are a number of characters that can ignore shields. And the only ones that we could think of, and this certainly doesn't mean this is an exhaustive list, but we came up with Blue Beetle, who can ignore shields on his basic, Reverse Flash, who can also ignore shields on his basic, Captain Atom, who can ignore shields on his basic, and finally Power Girl, who can ignore shields on her AoE. And that's not a bad list of characters there, other than Blue Beetle, who I mentioned before.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny. All three of them, all three of the good ones, are all energy
True.
characters.
Yeah, that's true. So it's a
Uh,
nice counter to if you're running against teams that have shield. That's a nice way to counter it if you want to ignore the shields.
yeah, it's always good to have one of those characters in your team anyway, because they're exceptional characters. Uh, but just that even there's been many a time that I've fought against a HAL team. Uh, that's I used because I use Reverse Flash a lot, and just the fact that I usually always leave Hal for the last. Um, he's gone in like a couple rounds just because of just only because of Reverse Flash.
Yeah,
Because by that time I have him with a bunch of strength ups, and he just annihilates him.
yeah, I do
Um,
that same thing. The leaving them to the end, and then you can kind of ignore the shield with Reverse Flash. The only downside I think to characters that ignore shields is the fact that if you're only running one and those shields remain, then it kind of doesn't help your other characters. And that's really
yeah,
the only downside I can think of to it.
no, that's a pretty significant downside too, because that's exactly what happens. You have your whole rest of your team just pounding on the shields, and you're relying for that one character to for his next turn to finally finish him.
That's right. And maybe that would be a good team leader ability, is a team leader that can make everyone ignore shields on the team.
That actually is a really good idea. Um, that would be it's a shield team killer if they had that, because if it's in constant effect and
Yeah.
not gated, yeah, that would just yeah, that would the shield teams wouldn't accept they wouldn't be a thing anymore because of that one thing, unless that one particular character giving out those that ability was just an awful character. Other than that one ability, um,
And for a
yeah, that could
while,
be a
it looked like the shield meta was what was going to be forming, and then all of a sudden, Lex Luthor gets a rework, and that was that.
yeah, exactly that. Yeah, yeah, that was interesting when Alan Scott came out. Um, yeah, I saw a sudden resurgence of Shield teams, and it was fun. It was fun to see. Um, but yeah, it sure didn't last long.
Yeah. Well, let's finish up by talking about some of the Shield composition teams we thought were pretty good. We put together about 4 or 5 suggestions. And the first one, I'll just list it. This was the one that you had come up with, and I like this one too. I'll just list it, and then you can talk about it. Was the Hal Jordan lead, Saint Walker, Alan Scott, and Booster Gold. And you can certainly talk about what you were thinking there.
Yeah, I like that one the most. Well, at least when I was thinking of it anyway. And then you came out with really good suggestions afterward. I like that one because not only does it hand out just a ton of shields everywhere. I anticipate that team to have shielding like all the time, but you also have two characters that are call assisting,
Yeah,
and if you're this it would be most effective against a green heavy team, because for a couple reasons, because it Hal Joy, if you get the call assist to Alan Scott, he's going to annihilate those greens or even some blues
yeah,
for that matter. But then if you're focused on a green team, you have Booster Gold there as kind of like a makeshift taunter, because those greens are going to want to get rid of him, like you're right, like well, right away, unless of course, unless you have the other team has Flash. The Flash always seems to just be drawn to Hal Jordan like all the time. Uh, the-
I noticed that
at least
too. I didn't think of it till you just said that, but it's true.
yeah, he just is in love or has a great hatred
Yeah,
for Hal
what has
Jordan.
he got against him? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah,
What did
I've
Hal
had
Jordan ever do to you?
well, yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, but the that I once I get my Alan Scott and also Brewster Gold upgraded, I plan on running that team to see how effective it works.
Yeah, I think it's a good
I'm
idea,
excited.
and as we mentioned with Alan Scott, a lot of his abilities are hinged upon him being shielded. So it's a really nice way to make sure he stays shielded.
Yeah, and he's just gonna crit all over the place.
So the second team that we had talked about was one that I had mentioned, and this is meant to be sort of a combination of defense and assists and punching back. Was the Saint Walker, Arcus Chummock, Penguin, Cyborg, Superman team. So this certainly isn't a team. If you're looking to get through your PvPs quick, this may not be the team to run. But what's really nice is being able to alternate the taunt between Penguin and Arcus Chummock, which means you're going to continually get extra affinity chance, or not affinity, affinity resistance ups from Penguin, shields from Penguin. If your Chummock is taunting, you're going to be able to hit people back. And then it gives you a lot of defense around Saint Walker so that it's very difficult to get to him and kill him. And with Cyborg Superman being such a tough tank to kill, who can also do some pretty darn good damage, I just thought this was a really good team, and one that would be a little scary if I saw it on my PvP board.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. It's a well thought out team. Um, I'm actually surprised that we haven't seen it yet. I think it might be because people just aren't using Cyborg Superman in PvP very much, and I find that very surprising because he's such a I, I understand why people have a problem with him, but what I don't understand is why they don't use him anyway because he's so hard to kill, and in order to win, you got to kill it. You have to kill him.
Yeah.
So
I think for me personally, I know mine is just kind of laziness. I'm the kind of person I like to get through my PvP as fast as possible. So that may be, I don't know if that's part of it for folks, because it is a slow grind with somebody like Penguin and Saint Walker, although you're getting some pretty heavy damage out of Arcus and Cyborg Superman. But I'm always like I'll wake up in the morning and I want to get through my PvPs as quick as I can so I can begin my day. So team doesn't really lend itself to that.
yeah, I would agree with that too because I find myself really sparse for time lately, and to be able to have to a grind to sit through a PvP match that takes longer than a few minutes can be really a pain in the neck.
The third one that we came up with is not so much based around the idea of shields, although the shields certainly help, but it happens to be a combination of characters who all do shielding with the addition of a different character outside of shield, which really gives me a chance to say something I've said in the previous Synergy series videos, which is just because you're building synergy around something doesn't mean that every single character in your team has to be a shielder. So this team was Hal Jordan, Brainiac, Booster Gold, and Donna Troy. And the idea behind this was to not only have the shields from Hal Jordan, Brainiac, and Booster Gold, but having all four characters that can stun. So you're not only getting the benefit of the defensive shields, but you're taking away team turns from the other team.
Yeah, stun teams are always really scary to fight. I've experienced that actually a lot recently. Donna Troy being the one, she seems to stun guaranteed every time she attacks.
Yeah, for the AI. For me, it's
Yeah.
like I have better chance of winning the lottery.
Oh yeah, that's AI is always superior, and I wish they would fix that, but whatever. That's a wish that's never going to happen.
The other thing
But
I
yeah,
like
this
about that team is you get the turn meter boost at the beginning of the match from Brainiac, so you're able to get more stuns off in that way.
yeah, and I think if I could be wrong on this, but the fact that Brainiac is be handing out buffs um, is going to make Donna Troy just proc those awareness even more so.
Well, the only one I remember that he gives out, well, and he has to be in team lead to do that, is he can give out the damage immunity while the person is taking their turn, which is a counter to Wonder Girl. I can't remember what else. If I don't think he gives out other buffs, but maybe I'm not remembering it right.
Well, it's more than likely I'm not remembering it right since I don't use Brainiac. Uh, so yeah, I think it's that's more of a me thinking outside, way outside the box on that one. So I don't know. It'd be worth playing that team or running that team just to find out.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last one we came up with was not so much as a team, but sort of a pairing that I feel like works real well together, which is Hal Jordan and Lex Luthor Assault Warsuit. This is a team I've been running lately, as I said, to deal with some of the evasion up teams, because Hal's hammer can't miss and Lex Luthor's missile move can't miss. And then the reason I like this pairing is because Hal Jordan can call assists, Lex Luthor does an enormous amount of damage on his basic. So when you call an assist from Assault Warsuit Lex, you know you're going to get some serious damage. And it's a way to kind of speed up a very slow character.
Yeah, that is one of his drawbacks, Lex's anyway, is that he is very, very slow. And there have been many times where I fought him that I was very thankful for the fact that he was very slow, because that's how you're able to get around that damage immunity before it starts.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah, we mentioned this. He's very underrated and very underused. Um, Even though he can be a pain to fight. I actually I would really like to upgrade mine and start using him, or even see him used more often, just because of how actually really effective he really can be if he's paired with the right people. And Hal Jordan would be would be a perfect example.
Yeah, I think that pairing is a good pairing to build around and figure out what are some comps where the other two characters fill in those slots.
No, yeah. It's this starting with those two. The other two possibilities are wide open.
Well, that was all we had for Shield characters and Shield synergy. Hopefully, you learned something in the video. If you did, I always appreciate it if you give the video a like. If you didn't like the video, try to resist pressing that thumbs down button. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I always appreciate it if you subscribe. I want to thank you, Cal, for coming on with me. You're doing this in the middle of a day on Friday, so you're generous with your time, and I appreciate that.
No, hey, it's always a pleasure, man. Always.
All right, well, I will not see you guys next time.